Hello, everybody. Welcome to Better Together. Happy Monday. When you know better, you get better. It is Monday, August 31st, 2020. Holy moly. August is over. Our quote of the day. We learn and grow. Wow, I can't read your writing. Guys, our printer, let's get real. Our printer is out of ink. So Kelsey had to hand write our quote of the day here.
Do you want me to read it?
So you can read it or Jeff can read it.
Jeff.
Whoever wants to read it.
I've got it queued up here if it's best.
Go
we
for
have
it.
Sharon Salzberg on today. We have a quote from her. She's an unbelievable spiritual activist and says, "We learn and grow and are transformed, not so much by what we do, but why and how we do it."
Ooh. And that is from Sharon Salzberg, our guest today, who is a celebrated New York Times bestselling spiritual thought leader. She's going to help us and help empower us to make change in our lives and our community through loving kindness. She's going to teach us how to love our enemies. Whoa.
Ooh.
Here we go. Thank you guys for joining us as always. Thank you for everybody, by the way, who is writing a review on Apple Podcasts. I see you. I'm so grateful. A lot of times when I need a good pick-me-up, that's where I go. Thank you for everyone who's subscribing to Patreon and becoming a member. I know a lot of you feel like technically challenged. We're making it really simple. It's a link in the bio on my Instagram page. Just go in there, click, or you can go to the summary of this show and just click on Patreon. It will take you there. And you can join us over there. We're building our Heal Squad community, and we're really excited. Especially, we're excited to the response to last week's episode with Tony Robb. Guys, I can't talk today. We had an episode last week that was amazing, where we shared our learnings from Tony Robbins' business mastery class that we all took. It was a $10,000 class. We were really grateful to be able to take it, and we are sharing all of those takeaways with you. So if you haven't become a member, it is worth it. Jump in there, get access to this episode. We're going to do a part 2 this week because we learned so much in those 17-hour days, 5 days straight, that we have more to bring to you. So we're going to do that as well. And we have amazing things in store. Jeff, maybe you want to tell them about the thing we're doing with Saw.
Well, we actually just secured the date, so very exciting. And not next Wednesday, but the week after. So Wednesday, September 16th. Sada Simone, who you guys will hear this Thursday, amazing, really interesting voice in the spiritual community, is doing a workshop with our patrons. So you guys will get a Zoom link. You'll get to join the live Zoom. He's going to do a little 30-minute presentation about authenticity and finding your best self. It sounds cliche when I say it, but when he says it, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And he'll do a Q&A. So he'll actually take questions and work with you guys on this Zoom.
So awesome.
I'm so glad I'm going to be there. It's going to be amazing. It's
Yeah.
Wednesday, September 16th,
Jeff,
but it'll
can I-
drop that Saturday.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry, to clarify, is everyone on Patreon, everyone allowed, or is it different tiers?
My thought, and we can discuss it as a team, we'll get back, but I think for those of you in that low tier who want to get a taste of what it looks like to be in those upper tiers and get these exclusive shows, I think this would be a really cool show for you to join in. So for the sake of including all of our patrons in this one, I think we should open it up to everyone for the SAW workshop. And then for those of you who are in that bottom tier, you can get a flavor of the bonus content that you'll get if you jump that next tier, which is
so
only
this is
$5 extra a month.
All right. I like that. Yeah, we're
Special
going to be
one.
doing a lot more of this kind of thing in the Patreon. We're really excited. So come on over, join us. It will be game changing for you guys. And we'll continue to bring you the amazing guests that we are on this show, but we have more latitude there and we have no ads. Yes. So join us at Patreon. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please do. We get very excited as those numbers go up.
So excited.
And we celebrate and just imagine the dances we do behind the scenes when we see that you guys are moved and this is serving you and this is helping you. So thank you guys for being a part of our Better Together community, because we do believe that we're better together and we're all going to be helping each other. And we have a really big vision for the show and what we're going to do together with you. So make the commitment to join us more officially. I think it will be very important for you. Okay, we have a lot of things to get through today. First, we're going to start with our snake attack.
Oh, gosh.
We were attacked by snakes today in Connecticut.
Yes.
So, guys, being a farm girl isn't easy. Between the dump runs, which, by the way, we had a love affair with our dump friend.
We love him.
We have a friend at the dump, and on Thursday we went to the dump, and I was like, I pulled him aside. I said, I just want you to know that you make something that should be unpleasant really pleasant. We look forward to seeing you. You're so fun and you're so bright, and you work at the dump. Like, I love this guy.
Yeah, he's the best.
And
he's
so
actually the best.
Yeah. So
we're betting on his name.
We've been, yes. So unfortunately, you know when you don't get someone's name the first time and then you're embarrassed later? We're in that situation right now. So Kelsey and I turned it into a game. So we are guessing his name. So when we go back this week, we're going to ask him, and we're going to, actually, we should test him and see if he remembers our names.
Ooh.
Then we won't feel as bad when he forgets us.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, cool. That's
unless
a good
he
tactic.
remembers right away and he's like, Kelsey Maria.
If
and
he
then
does, then
like,
I'm just going to ask for forgiveness for being.
We're sorry.
Or I'll throw my brain tumor card down.
Oh my.
It's always there. It's always there. You can always play that one.
Someone
So true.
actually made one for me as a joke. He's like, anytime you need an excuse for something, here it is. And he wrote brain tumor on a white index card, no, a white business card. And he's like, keep it in your wallet, just drop it down. It's just a funny way to think of something very serious. So whatever.
Hilarious.
You guys know me at this point. I like to make everything as humorous as possible. So,
But snakes.
but back to the snakes. So this morning, I saw something fluttering in the pool, and I thought it was an animal in distress. So I rush out, I grab the net, and I go to pick it up, and it's a snake. And then
Nope.
I see another snake.
freaked out.
And another snake, and they're slithering, swimming through the pool. And then I look at the concrete, and they're coming up through the gaps in the concrete, and their little heads are poking up and they're poking down, and then they're slithering through, all these places. And I'm like, oh my God. So if you are curious, go to my Instagram stories.
Do you want me to play it?
You can see them there. I will have Kelsey play. I just want to make sure you cue up the best one,
Yeah, let's
which
get
is
that
the
going.
one at the end where I really showed you all their faces. Because at first we were keeping distance and we were scared, and the lighting was difficult to capture them. You couldn't really see them all. But there were probably, I would say conservatively, 20
All right,
snakes.
You guys, I don't think you're ready for this. Let's see.
I don't think you're ready for my snakes. I don't think you're ready for my
Miranda
snakes.
having a heart attack. Oh. Ugh.
Okay, there we go. See them popping their little heads up? See them slithering in the pool? Yep. See another one coming at me?
Disgusting.
Look at their little heads popping.
What?
Boom.
It's a lot for the podcast listeners. Make sure you go to Maria's IG. I will say,
Horrible.
when they're extended, they're not as bad, but when they're kind of curled and contorted and popping out of the cracks, that is nightmare fuel. That is
Yeah.
scary stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty creepy because there was a massive concentration of them, and some of them were thicker and longer than the other ones. And listen, I hold snakes. I'm not like crazy scared, but the enormity of like the situation, like there were so many, like 1, 2, okay, but they were like, oh yeah, this is my pool, bitch, and they were going all over, and I'm like, no, it's my pool.
I'm laughing at the chat right now going, no, hell no, nope. Brandy, I feel you. No, I was not having
Kelsey was freaking out, and I'm like,
it. Not having it.
guys, it's so creepy. And it's funny, like you hear noises in the woods, and I love being in the woods. I think it's so beautiful, and we've had such a great time. But there are those moments when you're sitting outside and you're like, if I close my eyes, what could pop up? Right?
Truly.
There's beehives everywhere. I mean,
Or it could be majestic and it could be a deer, so you never really know. It could be
Yeah.
good or bad.
could be a butterfly.
Yeah.
Could be the beautiful
Hummingbird.
hummingbirds. However, we were sitting, Kelsey and Ashley were doing some work by the pool yesterday, right near the snakes. So imagine you guys were working and one of these slithery little suckers came up. Okay, that's
No.
it. So yeah, we had snakes.
So snakes.
Let's get to our Good News Movement Monday story of the day, because we need
Yes.
good news, especially after the tragic news that we heard on Saturday. So it was Saturday, right?
I think Friday evening officially.
Friday
but-
night. Okay, so
Yeah.
Friday night, Kelsey and I, saw on Twitter, and our jaws just dropped at the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and it was absolutely, like, it was shocking. It was unbelievable to us. No different than Naya Rivera, no different than Kobe Bryant. You're like, wait, what? They're so young. With Chadwick, knowing that he was battling cancer while he was having the most epic success in his career, and at the same time having those moments with all the kids that he was helping with cancer. I socialed out a moment where he got very emotional talking about these kids who were really just hoping that, you know, they could live to see Black Panther come out on the screens. I'm pretty sure that was the thing they were talking about, or just how excited they were to see that movie. And it was really, really heart-wrenching. So our Good News Movement Monday today was connected to that. And so, Jeff, if you would explain to everybody what we're seeing.
Yeah, I was also so moved by this story, Maria. I mean, like, in basically 7 years, he had a career that a lot of actors would kill for. And for a majority of that time, he was battling cancer. I mean, like, just what a hero. But, you know, one of the most important things that he did, among many, many important things, was to portray Black Panther in Marvel's mega hit Black Panther. I know you guys watched it this weekend. Amazing, amazing movie. But more importantly, what an important moment of representation. And Marvel was forerunner in that. I do want to give Marvel credit for that. But of course, it's Chadwick Boseman's performance as Black Panther that changed the lives for so many people, and especially so many young kids. And Michelle Figueroa over at Good News Movement posted a beautiful, beautiful photo of a young boy, a young Black boy doing Wakanda Forever. He's doing the symbol, and he has all of his Marvel action figures surrounding, but surrounding the Black Panther action figure, which of course Chadwick Boseman portrayed. And he's sort of lying down as if he's at his own, you know, memorial, and all of the other Avengers and Marvel figures are paying tribute to him. And just to know that kid's life might be forever changed because of Chadwick Boseman's performance is really important. So it's a beautiful photo. I think Kelsey's showing it now. And you can check that out over at Good News Movement.
Oh, it makes me cry.
It's the sweetest thing ever. I was posting this weekend, and we can talk about it briefly, but one of the things that struck me is everybody was tweeting about the personal internal struggles no one knows about, right? Like the things that we're all going through that we don't share with everybody, that we keep close to the vest. And people have just been remarking on his courage and his strength to battle cancer while having to gain and lose weight and build all this muscle and make these characters come to life and doing all this work. And it's a lot of work. I know people, you know, don't know everything that goes into it, and you can't possibly because you haven't done it, but it is a lot. And especially under that kind of duress, the added part to it that I added was, you know, what if he couldn't tell people? Right? Like, I remember when I was going to undergo brain surgery, I was advised, don't tell anybody. And for me, it was a really obvious choice to keep it a secret. I needed to make sure I came out the other side. I needed to make sure I came out the other side okay. If there was some complications that I needed to, like, hide for a little while I got better, because you don't want the industry to see you not well, because then you can be viewed as a liability, and insurance issues and all kinds of things. You know, you have to be insured to work on sets. And so imagine, and I just wonder if that played into his decision at all, and maybe his wife will, you know, at some point say something. But I know even people with mental health issues can't be honest because they will be discriminated against, and insurance won't insure them. And so it's a very challenging system, and it needs to be adjusted. But, you know, he obviously knew within himself that he could do it. And he did it. But I just kept thinking of how challenging it must have been for him to have to hide such a terrifying battle.
So brave. Just, I mean, and the hope is that the industry pivots and promotes a space where people can actually be honest about their health. I mean, it's been a real reckoning for this business over the last decade. And this is another huge chapter that needs to get unfolded, because if fear is what's driving people's ability to participate in this business, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been a fan of Chadwick Boseman. He was in this movie like 6 years ago called Get On Up, where he portrayed James Brown. And basically he portrayed Jackie Robinson, James Brown, Thurgood Marshall. These were all biopics that he stars in, portraying different heroes of Black culture in this century. I mean,
And then he became a hero
arguably,
himself.
I know, just one of the most
cry.
truly talented.
Yeah.
It's such a loss. It is so
Such
sad.
a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of beautiful to see getting on social media that night. I couldn't scroll without seeing one post of him, and I found that just so moving and beautiful, and he touched so many people.
Yeah.
It really is an awful loss. It's really, really sad.
Yeah, he was really special and
Yeah.
intentional every time he spoke. Even
Yeah.
did you guys see the post that Josh Gad put out?
Yeah.
So Josh
The
Gad
text?
his
Yeah.
final text
Yeah.
to Josh Gad was just about appreciating the beauty of every moment, and the rain that was coming down, and it was just, man, yeah, he was a special guy, and it's just, it's so sad 2020 continues to just be
I know.
a really sad year.
Yeah.
A really sad year.
When Laura told me, I was like, no. Like, she was like, Chadwick Boseman died. And I was like, that's wrong. Like, I was like, that can't be true.
Yeah.
But again, it's like you mentioned, like, it's so unreasonable 2020, like, to specifically take Black Panther from us. That just feels so unjust. It's just so upsetting.
Especially at the most critical time of needing him.
I know. But what a legacy.
That was us though too, Jeff. I mean, we were watching a movie and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
When she said that, I knew that meant somebody died. Like, I could just tell.
I read about
knew.
14. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. But what a legacy.
Oh,
is
man.
right.
All right. We are going to transition, and we are going to learn about loving kindness today and loving our enemies. And we're going to do that with Sharon Salzberg. She's a New York Times best-selling spiritual activist. She's considered a paramount voice for the introduction of Buddhist teachings in Western culture. She's the co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society, and she's been leading meditation retreats across the world for hundreds of thousands of students over the last 3 decades. Her recent work focuses on actionable ways that we can utilize spirituality principles to enact change both in ourselves and the world around us. Couldn't think of a more critical time to learn all about that. So she's going to help us unlock that power within ourselves today. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.
So how do we unlock that power within ourselves?
Well, first, I think we have to recognize we have some power. We have some agency. And when we feel overwhelmed or it's just like all too much, when we get into a space of helplessness, then all is lost because we're not going to have the energy. So I would say the first thing to do is see if there's someone you can help in some small way. Because so many times we think what we can do is negligible, it's like nothing, the problems are so immense. But if you can reach out to one person and see if you can make a difference, then that will unite you with a part of yourself. And you get to feel, oh, look what that feels like. And I tried my best and oh, I can actually do this.
I like that. I think Marianne Williamson was saying something similar to us because we were chatting with her at another critical juncture maybe 2 months ago, and it's funny. I was listening to one of your videos where you were talking about the opposite of faith, and you said that the opposite of faith is despair. And I feel like we have a legion of faithful people who have become so engulfed by despair. How do we, flip it and go back to faith? How do we get out of despair? Because I feel like we just keep, it's almost like this cruel joke right now where it's just like, let's just keep piling more things on. Let's just keep adding and adding. And let's see, I don't know, is it trying to is this like some great test for us?
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? It's just like I'm a very big fan of New Year's Eve. And I always felt like as a Jew and a Buddhist and an American, I was lucky because I get three of them a year. And there are three times when I can say, wow, we're turning a corner, new beginnings, like some of the stress and the difficulty of this past year. I can let it go now and move on. And I think, oh, somebody sent me a reminder of the email they had sent me this past New Year's Eve. And it was like, can't wait till 2020. It's
man.
like, 2019's been so tough and I can't wait. And I think, yeah, I remember that moment, and it's pretty overwhelming. So I think a lot depends on how we use the word faith. I tend to use it as a profound sense of connection
Ooh.
to inner strengths and to a bigger picture of life than the immediate circumstance that we find ourselves confronted by. And so the essence of that is connection, and despair I see as the rendering of connection. And so what I have done in my own life in those moments and what I see people do, really powerfully is reweave a sense of connection. And it may be in nature, it may be, as I was saying, with one other person, it may be with those strengths within through some kind of contemplative or meditation practice. It's some way that we get this sense of an expanse, and we can. It's through art, through literature. There's so many ways in which our world opens up, and that is really essential in a time like this where the stress is so it's such an onslaught.
So when you talk about the expanse, it's really my interpretation, and just to help everybody else, is to understand that the world is bigger than you and bigger than this moment, right? So like when you're on the ocean in a boat and you just see, like whenever I'm at the ocean, period, I just look out and I'm like, wow, there's like a massive world out there and I'm just a little ant.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic way of doing it. And it's also, I had read this quotation from somebody, I can't remember who, but he said something like, grief is love that doesn't have the normal place to land.
Grief is love that doesn't have a normal place to land.
The normal place. If you've loved a person and they are gone, or a set of ideals and they are shattered, or a place, and you can't get back there. And, but the love is still intact. And that's what I remind myself in those moments. It's like, of course, there's great sadness and there's a huge amount of letting go happening right now, but the love is at the heart of it. And if I return to honoring that, something happens that is very important.
Wow. And what is the difference between the love for that person and the love collective that you have, or is it all one? Like, can it just be transferred?
I think it is all one, and in many ways. I think we have particular relationships with people, of course. It's like when I teach loving kindness meditation and we talk about love for all beings everywhere, people usually say to me, well, I kind of like my husband, can I like keep him and, still have this sense of love for everybody? And of course, it's not that, relationships explode and differentiation ceases to happen, but at essence, it's that profound knowing that our lives have something to do with one another, that we are part of this bigger picture. I think in any one moment, we can feel terribly cut off and alone and lonely. And yet, if we really look, our lives are intertwined. They really are interconnected with other beings. I see that like when I go into a company or an organization to teach, I would say, how many other people need to be doing their jobs well for you to be able to do your job well? Because suddenly you realize, oh, I'm part of this network.
Yeah.
I'm part of this set of interconnected variables. And I was recently talking to the head of a hospital, a medical practice, and he said, "You know who I'm starting to appreciate a lot these days is the cleaning staff." You think about the people we normally look through or discount or objectify, who are keeping us alive,
Yeah.
and getting us food and things like that. And uh, we can, just by shifting how we pay attention, realize, oh, I'm part of this bigger picture.
Yeah, we all need each other. We're better together.
We're better together.
It's interesting. You know, when you realize that we're all connected, it's like we realize then when we try to cut off, a sector, or it's like cutting your own arm off, right?
That's right. Yeah.
How do you get people to see that and understand it?
I think the first thing is to realize that that doesn't mean we like everybody
Yeah.
and we're going to invite them for dinner or whatever we would do these days. That it's not about proximity or the action that we take or discarding common sense or wisdom. Maybe it's not that great to spend time with somebody or to let them close, but in our hearts, we can have a sense of inclusion rather than exclusion. And we can recognize, the conceptual framework we normally have is important as a concept of self and other and us and them. But when it becomes rigid and imprisoning, then we're all alone. And it's not reflective of how things are. It's like I was driving with this friend one year, and we were caught in this terrible, horrible, awful traffic and complained bitterly about it the entire time. And then my friend said to me, "Well, we're the traffic too." I said, "Oh, right." Like, what's the sense? It's like my road, I own it, and you are interlopers slowing me down, but we're the traffic too. And what happens if we make a leap into that recognition? Like, it's we, it's not just me and you way over there.
Wow. It's erasing the blame game, right? It's not me versus you. Like, there isn't somebody causing this traffic. You're right. It's all of us. What a great way to look at traffic.
I know.
I mean, I know that's not the point of the conversation, but it is a really great way to look at traffic, especially when you live in high traffic areas like we do in Los Angeles. It's interesting. So I want to talk about loving kindness. This is kind of like your central guiding force, I feel like, for what you do. Explain to everybody what it is and how it can benefit them.
Well, I first began meditating in January of 1971, and it was a presentation. I was in India. I went to India to learn how to meditate, and it was a presentation about mindfulness, which is a word that's gotten very popular, a quality of awareness where we're seeing more clearly what our experience actually is. And right at the end of that 10-day retreat, they talked about loving kindness practice, which is kind of a sister practice. It's its own method, although they're very supportive of one another. And it's a practice where we actually take a few risks with our attention. It's like we dare to look differently. So, for example, if we are in the habit of thinking about ourselves at the end of the day, and all we can think about is the mistakes we've made and how faulty we are and how we didn't show up, and we're just consumed with that, we kind of change channels for a moment and wish ourselves well, like give ourselves the gift of, may I be happy, may I be peaceful. And you think about all the people, kind of like I was just referring to, that we don't look at, we look through. The cleaning staff, people, the checkout people in the supermarket, people like that. And the training of loving kindness, in effect, is to look at them and wish them well. May you be safe, may you be happy. The grammatical phrase is usually may I, may you, and some people don't like that. They say, well, who am I asking? And we're not asking anybody, we're gift giving, we're offering. It's like offering a blessing in some way. And so, because we go through a variety of different relationships, ourselves, people who've helped us, people we know are struggling, and we come to like all beings everywhere. It's like an affirmation of how connected we all are, and so it's a very powerful practice, and it is its own practice, which I have. You're right. Really emphasized more than anything.
So is it an out loud thing where you start to acknowledge things you didn't acknowledge in your environment before, and you say it to them, like may you be well?
It is as a meditation practice. It's an internal silent practice. In countries like Burma, where I went to do that practice intensively, it's like a chant, and you wake up in the morning and you hear the nuns just singing it. And you wouldn't, of course, formally, walk up to a checkout person in the supermarket and say, "May you be happy, may you be safe."
Yeah.
Oh, maybe these days you would actually, um, but there's something you would probably say, like "thank you,"
Yeah.
um, in some way that it would express itself.
I love that. So you also talk about loving your enemies. How do we do that, Sharon?
It's so funny when I was writing a previous book to the one that is my most current book, and I was talking to a friend about this idea of having loving kindness for all beings, including those we find very difficult. And she said to me, "Even Stalin?" And I thought, who worries about Stalin these days? That's a pretty old fashioned sort of, resentment to have. So again, it takes tremendous exploration of what do we mean by love your enemies or loving kindness toward a difficult person. It doesn't mean giving in. It doesn't mean being weak. It doesn't mean disregarding your own needs. It's some understanding of a few things. One is if we are consumed with the actions of someone else and defined by them, then we have given over a great deal of our life force to someone. As one of my friends said to me after some period of time obsessing about the actions of someone else, he said, "I let him live rent free in my brain for too long." So this
Whoa.
process will replace that kind of obsession. And the other thing is understanding that when we ourselves are in pain or disconnected or contracted in some way, that's when we act recklessly or harmfully. And it is very likely that this other person or people are themselves in the same situation, which is why they have harmed somebody else. And it's not to say that's not an excuse for behavior, but it is some knowledge, so that we can have some sense of compassion, even. But compassion doesn't mean giving in. Again, it's you might fight from a great state of compassion, but you won't just be overcome by that kind of obsessive hatred. That's what
Yeah.
loving your enemies means.
How do you love? Oh man. Okay. So we're coming from a compassionate place where we have what I always say is I work really hard to put myself in other people's shoes. And so what I try to do with people I deem bad people is I try to go down the path of where did they come from? What happened to them?
Mm-hmm.
What led them to this place? I mean, obviously, we are a product of our collection of experiences, and I don't think people want to be bad. I think that they can make choices and go down bad paths because maybe they weren't educated enough, or they didn't have tools to make better decisions or whatever, right? It's challenging. I mean, life is challenging. So I try to put myself in other people's shoes. But sometimes it makes people around you uncomfortable that you can see that and be empathetic or compassionate, but it doesn't mean you're allowing the behavior that you think that this is okay, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, it should never mean that, because not all behavior is the same. People can cause a great deal of harm. And I think one can have an understanding, yes, I'm not going to spend time with you. It's not safe.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to fight your actions with everything I've got. Or I need to recognize that that compassion for you has to be accompanied by compassion for myself. This is not a zero sum game. And uh, it's more a question of ourselves experiencing the strength of that, how that doesn't make us passive or complacent, but it relieves us of the burden of that kind of obsession. I have in my recent book, I decided, I want to quote Gandhi, who said something like, um, and I don't mean, this is not a comment about feeling anger. This is a comment about being overcome by anger. Uh, and I thought, oh, Gandhi said something like, if you uh, get overcome by anger, it's like drinking poison, thinking it's going to kill the other guy.
Yeah, I like that.
And so, because I wanted to put it in the book, I had to source it. And so I couldn't find it attributed to Gandhi everywhere. I saw it attributed to the Buddha and Oprah Winfrey and Nelson Mandela and the Big Book of AA and Carrie Fisher. It's like, I have no idea who said it. But that's the point.
Yeah.
It's out of the greatest compassion for ourselves that we want to see, is there another source of strength? And it has to be a real source of strength.
How do you deal with the maybe anger that arises from things you're seeing playing out in the news, in the world? There was something trending on Twitter this morning about a little girl in Texas being given back to a family that was sexually abusing her. And I got so enraged and upset. And the only way I know right now to handle that is to go into self-protect mode and just pray and not allow it to overtake me. And I don't know if that's right.
Well, I think it's essential sometimes, because we can only take in so much at a time. And yet, that doesn't have to be the end of the story.
Yeah.
I think if
I wanted to fly to Texas, to be honest, and go rip her from that family and smash all of those people. But obviously I'm not going to do that. Carry on.
But there may be something to do, somewhere in between those two extremes. There might in fact be an action right there. No, of course you were. And I think one of the things I've seen through mindfulness and sitting with my own anger and being able to look at it, which is sort of the point of that meditation, is being able to be with whatever comes up, sorrowful or joyful or anything, and to really kind of hold it in a way, not hold on to it, but hold it in the presence of balance and kindness towards yourself. And one of the things I've seen is that really right at the heart of anger is a sense of helplessness. And that if I can sit with it long enough to get to that feeling, which I think is one of the most corrosive, difficult feelings for us to have, then I can decide, okay, what am I going to do? What action am I going to take? And that doesn't mean writing an angry tweet, something that actually can, although it might, but beyond that, contribute in some way to awareness, to some action that might make a difference.
Yeah. You have a new book that's coming out tomorrow called Real Change, and it's all about activism. And I know a lot of people don't usually equate spirituality and activism. So why are you adamant about its ability to change communities?
Yeah, I mean, people don't associate me with that either. If anything, they associate me with loving kindness, and that doesn't always compute with people's notion of activism. So I feel like I'm going off brand. So it's like kind of exciting too.
It's a new branch to the tree.
Yes. Well, what I've seen because I've been teaching for a very long time now, teaching meditation since 1974. And I've seen so many people doing all kinds of techniques, and it doesn't have to be meditation, but some kind of introspection, some way of knowing themselves a little better. I've seen over and over and over again how it leaves us with more good heartedness. Countless people have said to me things like, somebody approached me on the street and asked me for $1, and I gave them $1 because that's just what I do. But this is the first time I looked them in the eye and realized that is a human being. And so I've seen that so many times, and there's both not necessarily a great articulation of that, and also not everyone takes it another step and says, wonder what the housing policy is in the city, so that there's so many people on the streets. We don't necessarily look at causes and conditions. And so I wanted to address both of those, really honor that articulation. Like, yes, the more we know ourselves, the more we actually care about others. And there are ways of looking at systems that maybe that's a little bit unusual for us as spiritual people or whatever. And it would help a lot, if we develop that ability.
Jeff, I know you have some burning questions in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like really moved by that. I've been, I live in Hollywood and there's a lot of homelessness in my area, and I feel like I do see people, and sometimes we're scared to acknowledge other people's pain, or something is holding us back, and it's so common. And I want to ask you about like that journey. You talk about we need to look inward first before we're able to look outward, and I'd love for you to kind of clarify sort of what that means, because like I know I need to do work on myself before I can really fully empathize with experiences that are outside of myself to enable change.
Well, that's a good thing for it to mean. I mean, that's a lot of what it means. But I would say, either through meditation or mindfulness or just looking, notice your motivation when you say something, when you give that person $1, when you look the other way, when you blame somebody for their situation. Just notice. It's a little bit of a pivot. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it spy consciousness. It's not like this intense self-scrutiny, but you just pivot your attention. Notice what's motivating you. Again, if I go into an organization, something I'd often say to people is, before a major conference, before a major meeting, ask yourself, what do I really want most to come out of this? Do I want to be seen as right? Do I want a resolution? Do I want to help somebody along or kind of mentor them? Do I want to grind them into dust? And just that sort of awareness really helps us see where we're coming from. And I mean, you obviously do it when you said, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to sit and be with somebody's pain, in my consciousness. And if you notice that, that's a long way, because then you can say, okay, what can I do to address that? It might be that you listen. It might be that you really ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Like somebody who had a very severe depression said to me once, people started avoiding me as though it was contagious. And I said, I don't think it was necessarily that fear, but people are afraid of saying the wrong thing. They're afraid of kind of blundering and making things worse somehow. And he said, I didn't need them to say the right thing. They're not in charge of my state. I needed them to be there. Just be present and acknowledge it. So listening is a good thing. And seeing for yourself, what am I afraid of? What do I think is going to ensue if I acknowledge it? And I'd also say we're stronger than we think, and sometimes it's harder to do things alone. Sometimes it's easier with a sense of community. Like here we are together trying to look at this problem or these issues and seeing what maybe we can do.
Yeah, I like the clear setting of an intention before you do something. I think that's a really important thing for all of us to kind of take note of, right? Why am I doing this? What do I want to get from this? What am I trying to achieve here? I think we all just go into things so aimlessly, or at least I do, or I know I have, where you're just like, it's something on your schedule and you're just, okay, aimlessly there. Cool. But if we have that intention set, then we're actually going to get something from that experience that maybe we weren't going to get before. I love that. That's really powerful. Sharon, since you're probably the first person we've had on the show that has taught meditation as long as you have, I'd love to ask for your kind of tools and techniques because, and I also wonder, back in, was it 1974, 71, you said?
71 is when I started. 74 is when I started teaching.
So meditation was like super popular back then, right?
The idea of meditation was super popular. The reason I went to India, I was a college student at the State University of New York at Buffalo, and I took an Asian philosophy course, which is where I heard about meditation. And honestly, looking back, I think I took it because it fit my schedule,
Yeah.
There was a philosophy requirement. I had to take a philosophy course. So I said, oh, I'll do that one. That's convenient. It's on Tuesday. And it totally changed my life. And it was in the context of that course, I heard about meditation. There were things you could actually practice. There were methods that were practical that if you undertook them, you could be a lot happier. And I was not very happy. And so I looked around Buffalo, New York. I didn't see it anywhere. And so I created an independent study project for the university saying, I want to go to India and study meditation. And they said, okay. And that's how I went. The idea was sort of popular, but the reality was not really available.
Well, I'm also kind of kidding a little bit because, you see that it's become popular in recent years, but I wonder how open people were back then to these things because, it's always challenging when you're trailblazing and kind of, the first. And so I start to think of like, what energy healing is now, where people look at it with like the third eye and they're like, that's weird. Like that's probably where other things like this were back in their inception or in the beginning of it coming to the mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Like when I came back from India in 1974 as a teacher, because one of my own teachers had told me to teach, be at a party or some social situation, and people would say, as we do, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, oh, I teach meditation. And they would kind of go, oh, that's weird. Or sometimes people would say to me, did you meet the Beatles over there? I'd say, no, sadly, they went when I was in high school in different tradition anyway. And these days, after, I believe, after so much science, so much more science and research and kind of relanguaging the idea of meditation so people understand it's not about a belief system. It's not about an identity like becoming a Buddhist or a Hindu or anything. It's about the power of one's own awareness and being able to harness it. People often, if I'm introduced in that way as a meditation teacher, will say, I'm so stressed out. I could really use some of that. And occasionally someone will say, my partner should really meet you. That would be really useful for them. Or I also hear, which concerns me, oh, I tried that once, I failed at it. Because we believe you cannot fail at it. You cannot do it wrong. You can't have the wrong experience. And so if I ask, well, why do you think you failed at it? People usually say something like, I failed at it because I couldn't stop my mind. I couldn't banish all thinking. I couldn't have a kind of state of complete quiet. But we don't believe that's the purpose anyway. It's not to like put away your thinking, but to have a different relationship to it. Like we don't have to take every thought to heart. We don't have to build a whole identity around it. We don't have to act because we had a certain thought. We have a choice if we can see it as it's first coming up.
I love that interpretation because I feel like everybody does feel this enormous kind of importance on having no thoughts. You have to have a completely clear brain. And I think also all the more reason to keep doing it, right? Because if you're having so many thoughts and you can't shut your brain down, the whole point of doing this is to try to get to a place where you can have more inner peace. And with repetition, that will come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and some measure of that peace is really having a thought come, but not taking it to heart. As one of my teachers would say, this Tibetan teacher, his name is Sokni Rinpoche, he'd say, the thought is not the problem, it's the glue.
Ooh.
You know, we have a thought, we grab it, we nurture it, we build on it, we decide, yes, I'm going to send that tweet, you know, or I'm going to do this. And then we act, and then maybe we look back and think, what was that about? You know, like,
Yeah.
I was just overcome by thought.
So what are your like top tips for people meditating?
I mean, people starting out when they're beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to be reasonable. Like, don't think, well, I'm going to sit for 8 hours now, you know. Neuroscience actually tells us it's 7 to 9 minutes, although the most recent neuroscientist I talked to said 12 minutes, you know, to instantiate the kind of changes that people, you know, are researching. So say you're going to sit for 10 minutes, thereabouts. Maybe, you know, it could be 5, but somewhere that you feel is reasonable, and see what seems a reasonable period of time for you, like a week, every day for a week, every day for a month, whatever is right for you. And then just practice it and learn something about practice, because it's, again, you know, we can have such a habit of self-judgment and self-criticism that every thought that appears, when we think, oh no, I'm doing it wrong. But if we really take in, the purpose is not to wipe out your thinking. The purpose is to develop a different relationship to everything, thoughts and feelings and everything that comes our way. And then choose a simple technique. Like, usually we begin people with just feeling the breath, feeling the actual sensations of the in and out breath, which I think in a time like this is also useful, because in high stress, we forget to breathe, you know, so set a timer for 5, or, you know, people use apps, somehow set a timer for 5 minutes or thereabouts, sit down, close your eyes or not, settle your attention on the feeling of the breath. And the most important point of all, which carries through any method or technique, your attention will wander. We know that. You'll get consumed by fantasies or lost in thought, or you'll fall asleep. But the most important moment of the whole process is the next moment, where we can practice letting go and beginning again. It's really, that's why we call it a practice of resilience, because we can let go and begin again. We can let go and start over. And it really, it builds almost like that muscle of being able to let go, and with a full heart, being able to start again.
I love that. Do you have meditation apps that you enjoy?
Yes, well, I'm on several meditation apps. I'm on 10% Happier, and Insight Timer, and I think others as well.
Got it. I'm going to have to look into those. I just got into an app called Breathing Room.
Oh, yeah. I'm not on that, but I will also look into it.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a meditation that this woman did called the Soul Sync. And I really liked it. And then she got off of YouTube. And then I guess they built this whole app. So I was oh, there we go. So I found her. But it's encouraging to hear the time the neuroscientists are saying, because, and I wonder how that plays in with TM, because transcendental meditation is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So is that too much, or does that?
I don't think it's too much. I mean, a friend of mine who was a neuroscientist some years ago said 7 to 9 minutes. That's what his lab, his research was showing. And I said, I don't know if it's that healthy to go for the bare minimum, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're nervous or you feel like, I'm not sure about this, then you should just know that that's okay. You don't have to think about, 7 hours, or it's not going to make any difference. And then I was recently on a panel online for Oxford University, and another friend of mine who's a neuroscientist with a different lab heard me say that, and I could see from the look on her face she didn't really agree. So I said, okay, what do you think? And she said, well, my lab found 12 minutes. And really nobody knows, it's not
Yeah.
like there's an exact number, but the point is it's not so unthinkable that we will find even 12 minutes a day.
Yeah, I think we all can find it. We just have to mark it as important as other things. Kelsey, you want to ask her?
Yes.
Go for it.
Hi, Sharon. I have a question. What
Hi.
are the benefits that you have found from meditation and meditating?
Okay, well, obviously I've been meditating for 1,000 years, so it's a little hard,
Right? Or for anyone
to
who's going to go embark on that journey, what can they?
Yeah, well, I'd say, I started when I was 18 years old, and I'd had a very traumatic childhood, and I feel like if I was going to try to describe myself in one word at that part of my life, it would be fragmented. I just felt like I didn't have a sense of coherence. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my values were. And meditation, the first thing it did was help me weave together and have a sense of myself. And I would say something that I'm actually relying on a lot these days is the ability to have kind of moments of rest and a sense of, like if you use the breath, say, for your anchor of attention, that is a moment of rest. All that stuff may be happening, the thoughts and the feelings and the fears and everything, but you're not so caught up in it. And we need that. I need that. And it's so available. It's like right here. And so that's something that I've really seen. And especially through doing loving kindness meditation, I could see evolving in me an entirely different sense of connection with others, which might be expressed just in a moment. It might be thanking that clerk sincerely, being present with them or listening in a different way instead of being so distracted. And whatever the benefit, what I have seen over and over again is that it's available. It's not like I have to climb another mountain to get there. I just have to remember, okay, take a breath or be in the moment right now. Stop thinking about the email you need to write, and listen to this person. And so that action of letting go and beginning again, I think is so fundamental, because probably more than anything, I've brought that into my life.
I love that.
I love that too. I really, I keep going back to that expanse. I think that's such a major thing for all of us right now, as we're feeling, like I said, despair or helplessness, or, all of those feelings, those challenging feelings, is, find a way to go out, whether you live in the desert and see the expanse of the desert, the ocean, a river, the wilderness. When you get out and you start to see that you are such a teeny part of this, the humility that comes with it will kind of free you of all the burdens you're placing on yourself. And, because I feel like we all, want to be the superhero of our story, and it's not always for us. Right? Like sometimes you can just be an observer. Sometimes you can just be and not have to solve everything and have that burden.
Well, I think many times, and that doesn't preclude taking some action.
Yeah.
Which seems small perhaps, but it, I think underlying any action we take, hopefully, is that sense of being, because otherwise it's a different investment in the action. It's got to be up to me. I've got to save them. I've got to make this all different.
Yeah.
And it's rarely like that, Yeah.
And also just the loving kindness and seeing people and giving them your attention, right? Like our friend at the dump.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that
Our
funny?
guy, yeah.
Like when we go to the dump, we are very present with him.
Yeah.
And he makes our day and we make his day, as he told us. And, or we could just be rushing on in and just casting aside. Where do we put our stuff? Cool. And like, think of how much it's so strange, Sharon. We really get a lot of joy going to the dump.
But it's because we're present.
It's interesting.
Yeah. But it's because we have like this great exchange with somebody who works there. And I said to him the other day, I said, an unpleasant thing, one would think, to have to take their trash to the dump, right? The van smells. There's sometimes flies. It's not something I thought was going to be an exciting venture for myself. However, you have made it such an exciting adventure where every time we come, we know we're going to see your smiling face and we have fun with you and we joke and you tell us about some story and then we have our exchange and we take the trash and we're like giggling and laughing on the way out. And so, but we would be robbing ourselves of that joy as well if we weren't present and we were just on our phones and busy.
Yeah.
I know.
Actually, you're reminding me of this time years ago. I was taking a walk with a friend in a cemetery in Cambridge, Mass at dusk, and we got locked in because, it grew dark and somehow we missed whatever signal they were putting out to leave. And we went to the entrance that we had used, now an exit, and it was locked. And we just like wandering around amongst these gravestones for a while and wondering if we were going to end up spending the night there. And then we came upon a security guard who would not stop talking to us. And I realized he has no one else to talk to. He's like there all night in the cemetery. And, he was like, he just talked on and on and on and on and on and on. But that was an interesting reflection. Like instead of just getting annoyed and saying, hey, I've been in here long enough,
Yeah, I got to get out of here.
It was like, he has no one else to talk to.
Yeah.
Let's just hang out with him.
So cool. You were the only alive people to talk to. Everybody else was gone.
Yeah. I mean, he might have been talking to other people. I don't know, but they weren't alive.
Oh, man.
I'd love to hop in with a quick question. That's okay, Maria.
Yeah.
Just as we were talking about meditation, one of the things that you said to me, Sharon, that I thought was so valuable for our audience right now is how meditation can help us untangle misfortune from humiliation. So many people who are unemployed right now or don't feel like they have the life or the dignity that they used to need to be able to untangle the circumstances of their life from their own value.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, I think that is so crucial. And I've often looked at that, just the association of having less, for example, or less than we used to, or less than other people, with the idea of being unworthy to be alive or being humiliated, and how that can be a real cultural message. And it's the wrong message. And yet we take it on. So the process in the meditation is really untangling what we call proliferation, where something happens, and it may be very painful. It's not to gloss over that, but we add to it through this kind of proliferating tendency. So the story I usually tell about that is I was teaching with my friend, my colleague, Joseph Goldstein, and we were together in the kitchen somewhere having a cup of tea. And someone came in and said to Joseph, I just had this miserable experience. So Joseph said, well, what happened? And he said, I felt all this tension in my jaw, and I realized what an incredibly uptight person I am and how I always have been and I always will be. And Joseph said, you mean you felt a lot of tension in your jaw? And he said, yes, and I've never been able to get close to people, and it's never going to change. And Joseph said, as you might imagine, you mean you felt a lot of tension in your jaw? And every time he said that, the man responded with some elaborate story about who he essentially was, which was no good, and how that was going to last forever. And finally, Joseph said something to him like, why are you adding a miserable self-image to a painful experience? It's like painful enough to feel the tension in your jaw. But on top of that, now you're going to be alone for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so unwinding that is kind of an essential part of mindfulness training. We say, look for the add-ons, and again, it's not to say everything is delightful and you say, fantastic, I'm unemployed. It's not like that. Some things are very, very painful, but on top of that, we tend to add extra pain.
Yeah.
And so even if the world is doing it, we don't have to do it. And that's part of the kind of the whole training in mindfulness is not to buy into all that stuff.
Yeah, like Dr. Amen, who we had on last week, was like, ask yourself, is this 100% true?
Yeah.
So maybe with the add-ons, we take a second and say, well, is this 100% true?
Yeah, no, that's great.
That will help unwind. Sharon, thank you so much. Guys, her book, The Real Change, comes out tomorrow. It can be found wherever books are sold. And everything you need to know about Sharon, you can find at her website, SharonSalzberg.com. We'll put the link to that inside the summary of the episode. And Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really delightful to meet you.
So nice to meet you. We'll have to chat again soon.
That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
So great.
So
I love
awesome.
that.
Woo.
Love, love, love that.
You know what? My favorite bit I have to say was the asking yourself, what do I really want most out of this? When you're going into any situation, whether it be a good or a bad one.
Yeah, because then you also don't have like all these expectations of all these things happening, right? Like then later you're like, well, this should have happened, or she should have done this, or he should have done that.
Yeah.
It's like, ask yourself, what do you want? And then you'll probably get what you want if you've set the right intention out there. I don't know. It's really cool. I love that too. All right, guys. Trying to keep these more